I think what could be possible is that the surviving members of the family would not have consented to being involved in the film, but they still wanted to go ahead and tell the story. So they probably chose to black out his face. That's what I think is the possibility, because sometimes you have to take the consent. There can be legal repercussions. And this can also be used because, you see, she was not executed then. And her appeal was pending. So this could have a bearing on her trial, on her case in court. So that shouldn't be...
The whole film can be. But I think, I'm just wondering, our own need to want to see the face maybe, to a certain extent... also somewhere bothers me, but I think that is right. Then, the film is about them, and maybe the filmmaker may or may not have even approached his family, and and he's not there to that extent to also give that consent. So in a way, I thought that was a good, because even I did notice, because those lines were whatever right or wrong, but in a way of respecting that person who's not there to have given. But yes, it was the kind of the language that the women use, and the detail in which the but at the same time being able to, despite, that's where also the challenge is, because the more the brutal the offense, somewhere you forget the reason or whatever it is, and the demand for that death penalty comes from the from that question of that brutality. So to that extent, I thought it was quite powerfully in that sense used, despite the detailed whatever of she saying, I chopped him up, I put him in a thing, and I dumped him in. At the same time, it does not in any way blur your stand of saying no to death penalty, which I thought was...
The thing happens when you are not showing something, or when you are keeping it vague. The thing that it can be anybody in your imagination. It should be generic. Means I know that she was pointing to her husband and all, but maybe the creator wants that it should be a very generic, that it can be anyone.
But there were other characters whose faces were revealed. Yeah, and in particular, I think that one, because it was a very it seemed to be a very difficult case, because she did refer to his sister who would be looking for her. So there must have been repercussions to the family of the deceased. So
very interesting is, for example, when we talk of rape victims in India, and that whole demand that their identity must not be revealed there. But you see, especially post the Delhi rape case, a lot of rape survivors have actually come before on television and are speaking about their experiences, and are okay to, So I think for me, just because, only since you were talking about that, I do see that as also a change, in women being able to come and say, yes, this happened to me. Because this whole demand of not disclosing their identity also puts you in a little bit of a place of discomfort. While of course one knows why you're doing it. At the same time, when sometimes by... if you're able to identify, because ultimately the consequences are on that woman itself. And I think it's a rather a long journey, for one to have seen that a lot of rape survivors are actually coming forward and speaking. I just thought...
There was a very disturbing news item that in Iran, less than a week ago, a woman was executed in a very similar case. So it's... like you said, the whole judicial process, whether it's in India or Iran or anywhere else, it's almost like a lottery, especially where the death penalty is concerned. In very similar cases, you find it going exactly in the opposite way. So what it ultimately boils down to is that judges are human beings too. They have all the biases of everyone else, but they are given so much of power, literally the power of life and death over citizens of the country, and it's quite alarming when.
Just wanted to say that it was interesting that showing the faces of the women who had committed the crimes is in certain ways synonymous to sort of rape survivors coming out and showing their faces, even though perhaps they're on different sides of the commission of the crime. But I mean, by the women showing their faces, and of course, you know, they're taking responsibility for what they did, and what they did is not something they should be given the death penalty for anyway. So, I mean, I think it just, somehow, somewhere I was drawing a parallel between what you were saying about rape survivors and these women showing their faces, and intriguingly, or rather interestingly, in the second film about the death penalty, we actually don't know anything about these people who have been, killed by the state. So, in that sense, the filmmaker takes an anti-capital punishment stance, which is great, and yet it is a partisan stance. You know, in that the partisan is okay. That's the wrong use of the word. What I mean is that it's not. He's not telling us the full story, right? We don't say that capital punishment should be justified by any means, but do we? I think this is actually an interesting question, because now I'm beginning to question myself. Does it matter what it is that all these people who were, killed by the state did? Does it matter for us as viewers? I don't know.
I think it is a conscious decision. A good experiment would be to, in fact, put situations to the audience, where a situation where a man has enraged, raped and killed 2 women in a family for no rhyme or reason. One of the women is a girl who's 6 years old. Then you have another situation where in a family feud, 2 men kill 3 members of the other family. Then you have a third situation where a man is accused of placing a bomb in a train, which goes through, and about 17 people are killed. So you have situations like this, and you try and figure whether you think that capital punishment would be justified in any of these situations. The truth is that capital punishment, irrespective of any situations, one where there is a minor girl and her mother who have been raped brutally and killed, then you have a second situation where you have a family feud. It's a crime of passion which takes place in the moment, and 3 members of a family are killed. And there may be other angles to this. There may be community angle to it, or there may be a caste angle to it. There may be an angle of honor, any angle. And in the third, you have a situation which we, loosely in legal parlance refer to a war against the state, waging a war against the state. How would you take each of these 3 situations? They are all gross. They are all grave circumstances. The first and the last one may be even termed as a rarest of rare circumstance, enough to give a death sentence. But in the second instance, we treat it as a crime of passion, a crime of the moment, a crime not deserving of the death penalty. The question is whether we think that death penalty as a mode of punishment, as a method of punishment, is justified or not. Whether we think that death penalty is severe, whether we think that death penalty is human. I mean, to a lot of people, that death penalty is inhuman is not an argument that actually falls true. I mean, they don't care if it is human. What he did is not human. So why should, the punishment meted out to be him be human?